Welcome back to Real Men of Real Estate Radio Talk Show, and I'm your host, Curtis the Boss Doss, and I am here with special guest Steve Matley. And right before the commercial, we were talking to Steve about acquisitions and entitlements for investment. So, Steve, break that down for us. What exactly does that mean?
That's a good question, because as we're talking, there's probably people at home going, what in the world is this guy talking about? Okay, acquisitions, that must be art he's buying, and entitlement, he's referring to his, millennial kid that won't move out of the basement and wants all the credit cards. That's not what we're talking about at all. So acquisitions means real estate acquisition. It's the process of procuring or buying the real estate. And that sounds pretty simple, because usually you go to your real estate agent and they drive you around and you look at a house and you put in an offer. When you're doing land, it's a whole different deal. It's commercial and land and those things, that's a different world. We never buy real estate that's listed on the market. So we're not going to go to the MLS, and there's no real estate agent that we're going to call up and say, hey, can we talk about that 50 acres out there? We have to diligently search for it. We kind of, we find it ourselves. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a team of us that do it. I'm pretty good at it, but my partner's much better. He loves it. It's like the game he likes to play, finding that land. So first thing we do is we profile the type of property we're looking for. So let's say we go into an area and we say, okay, this is the area we want to work in, because we know from all the market studies and what's going on that this is a growth area. If we bought land and entitled it, a builder would have a very high probability of purchasing this from us at a high price, because they have a high probability of getting people to buy the homes they're going to build on them at a high price, right?
Okay.
This is the way it works, right? Now, when I say at a high price, I mean the highest of that level. So we kind of focus on entry level, but there's you want the best price you can within that entry level price point. And the reason entry level, again, is because that's the number one demand item. We're in California. Right. There's not a lot affordable anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay, so we do the entry level because that is the number one demand item, is a single family home that's at the lower price point that you can access. It's kind of a first home kind of a deal, right?
Okay.
So that's what we focus on, and we'll highlight an area, and we do this in right now currently in Florida, Texas, Arizona, California. We've been looking at some other areas as well. And we'll find the land based upon that market. We'll look at the agency having jurisdiction, meaning the city or the county that's going to approve it or permit it, right?
Okay.
Whoever you have to go to get permission is
Right.
what that is, okay? And find out, do they want it? And if they want it, do they want that kind of a project on this particular piece of dirt?
Oh, okay.
Right? Because you can't just do what you want anywhere you want. I can't just go buy 20 acres and go build a bunch of homes on it and say, isn't that great? The neighbors will have something to say about it. The city has something to say about it. Local utilities have something to say about it, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you got to make sure all this stuff works. So there's a lot of upfront. And so the first thing we do is kind of profile the property. This is what we're looking for. Roughly this many acres in this jurisdiction with this type of zoning or this type of a general plan designation. Those are how the local agency, county or city, determine what they would like on different pieces of land. The zoning is what is, the general plan is what could be, or what they'd like to see. Okay. And if you're within those, there's a lot less hurdles to jump through, because you're not asking for variances. You're not asking them to do something that wasn't what they wanted. Right.
Right.
You want to do what they've said they want in their city. You're coming in as kind of a guest into someone else's town.
Right.
And so what you're hopefully delivering is what they want and what they need in a high quality way, so that you leave them better than you found them, and at the same time your investors in your project works, right? So it works for you too.
Perfect.
Okay. So then once we go and negotiate that, we find that out, we find the owners of the land, we contact them, we ask them, would you be interested in selling your land to us? Right? Okay. If we can get that deal worked out where we can purchase the land, and again, they didn't have it listed, so they may not have intended to sell it, but we find out. Sometimes they're more than willing to sell it. They say, actually, that's going to solve a great problem for me.
And is there a reason, Steve, why you guys prefer to go with things that aren't listed on the MLS versus kind of your private acquisition?
Usually what is already on the MLS, if it's listed, it's usually... how would I say? It's usually going to have more competition for it.
Got it.
More people are after it, which is going to drive the price up and give you a lower probability. If you're the only one talking to the owner, There's a chance they could say no because they didn't have it listed, but you're the only one talking to them.
So
right?
kind of like in residential, where when you've got a home that hits the market, everybody and their brother can see it. But what if it's kind of a pocket listing? It's more
That's right.
of an intimate kind of bidding
That's
situation.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
Right. And you're getting, and so you're kind of, and you get more of an access to the seller directly. Listed, you're only going through an agent. And we like to talk to the owner themselves. We have nothing against real estate agents, but the truth is we'd like to talk directly. The agent can sit there and watch us. We tell the agent, come, don't say a thing, watch and learn. Right? So
great advice.
Yeah. And then you can do it someday yourself. That's okay.
Sounds good.
So once we do it, so now you've got the land, but it's just land. And let's say you bought it and it's still zoned agriculture. Okay, so you can't go build a bunch of homes on there.
Correct.
Because as an agricultural land, maybe you can only do 2 or 3 dwelling units on there on the 40 or 50 acres. You've got to get it entitled. Entitled means getting permission from the local agency, the county or the city, to change what it is to what it needs to be. Okay, so I take one parcel that's 40 acres of alfalfa farm or dirt or whatever it was, and it could be an old dairy, it just could be open land, whatever. And usually it's usually fallow agriculture. Then, and it's in the path of growth, okay? And the city says, we'd like that there, because when you do that, that's going to provide a widened street there. It's going to provide you're going to be putting money into a signalized intersection. It's going to put money into our schools. That's what happens with development.
Which in turn is going to help the city and the county as a whole.
Now, not all cities believe this. Some cities say, we've got enough. Thank you very much. We don't want you here. Okay. And that's fair. That's their city. They get to do that,
sense.
Right? Other cities say, honestly, we'd like that growth, because with the growth comes better infrastructure and resources for us locally here, right? And that helps us. Those are usually emerging, growing cities, right?
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's whatever they want. And so you work with them, what do they want? And then there's a process. Is it feasible? Is the soil right? Is there drainage? Do you need to bring? Is there the right kind of dirt out there? What's the environmental, meaning biological issues? There are plants or animals that you're going to be disturbing or having, endangered species. Is there cultural issues? Is there historical sites? Is there Native American grounds there that need to be preserved? Whatever it is there paleontological issues? Meaning, are there fossils out there? Right.
Wow.
So all these things you have to look at, and you do all these reports and studies, and what's going to happen to the traffic? What's going to happen to the noise? Right. How are we going to get? There's going to be now 300 more people living here.
Correct.
And that's more cars on the road. So what do we have to do to mitigate that impact? Okay, you got to widen the street. You got to help with the signalized intersection. You got to put money into the schools so they can add more seats. Right.
Right.
Exactly. It's this thing. Parks and Rec District. Street lighting. All the stuff. So all that stuff's got to get taken care of. And then what happens when it rains? Where's the water going to go? Do we have a way to deal with that? Right.
Exactly.
Okay. This is the entitlement process.
Wow.
And then when you get through that, and it can be very lengthy or it can be very short depending where you are and how aggressive they are at wanting development and what the requirements are. In California, it's quite the process, which also, while it's a lot of brain damage, it also makes it very lucrative, right? Because believe me, people will gladly pay us to do that for them. Okay.
Right,
okay.
right.
Yeah. Because any builder could do it themselves.
So a lot of these things that you're talking about, is this something that you kind of do the legwork ahead of time before you even go to acquire the land?
Oh, a lot of due diligence. So what happens is we'll put the land under contract, and so you're a realtor.
Exactly.
And you know that sometimes people want to put things in escrow, and they want an opportunity to get a
home inspection
or a termite inspection, right?
Kick the tires.
And there's a length of time. Maybe they get a week to do all that.
Right. Okay. To remove the contingencies.
With ours, because it's much larger, more complicated, we'll get 90 days to 120 days to do that.
Okay.
Because our escrows can be 2 years long.
Good to know. Okay. Good to know. Okay. Perfect. So you're doing the due diligence. You're dealing with all kinds of things, maybe even CEQA things.
Well, then all of that goes to CEQA.
All that goes to CEQA.
So CEQA and NEPA.
Okay.
You're familiar with both, right?
Well, so now I'm familiar with CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. But
that's right.
What's the other one for all those listeners out there, including myself, that don't know what that
federal
is?
Version, the National Environmental Protection Act.
Whoa.
NEPA is the federal, think EPA, and Department of Interior stuff. CEQA is the state. Okay, so think all the state agencies that come in, and so and all of that is it's really the process of letting all your neighbors tell you what you can or can't do on your own land. And that sounds intrusive and horrible, but the fact is If you lived in a nice little house and next to you, elementary school was 2 blocks down and your kid walked every day, would you want a strip bar built between you and the school?
I think I'd be what's called a NIMBY,
Exactly,
not
yeah.
in my backyard.
Right. Or
and
would
I
you
would have
want
something to say
or
about
would you
that.
want a car lot going in next door in your residential neighborhood? No.
Probably a really good restaurant.
Yeah. So it's not an appropriate use, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Therefore, we have a public hearing process to make sure that whatever we're doing is benefiting the community and not detrimental to it. And it's what the community wants and what they need.
Makes sense.
That's why your neighbors get permission to tell you what you can do on your own land, because otherwise it could be it's the Wild West out there otherwise.
Gotcha.
So as frustrating as it is for people like me, I fully understand and appreciate it as just a regular citizen.
Right. And how hard is it to meet with the city officials to get the entitlement process going? Is it a tedious process?
Entirely dependent upon which the city or the county you're working with. Entirely dependent upon. Some really don't want that. They make it very difficult because they are very developed out and they can be very picky and choosy about what they want. Okay, you need them much more than they need you. Other cities, they need you more than you need them because they red carpets rolled out because they would love to have the revenue and the additional population. Remember, more homes as much as that is a burden to a city. If you get enough rooftops, you get more commercial, which is where cities make money, right?
That makes sense.
So if they want the super target to come out there and build, super target says, yeah, we aren't coming out there till you got 50,000 rooftops within a certain radius, right? And right now you only got 22. Right.
So call us back when you got those extra homes.
And so now the city says, the houses actually create a burden to take care of them, but if we can get enough of them, we get the super target, which means all the other little businesses that come along with it, with the center, right?
Right.
So now you got all these businesses that are all generating local tax revenue for the city.
And more rooftops mean more people living in the community, which means more jobs, more people out there producing income.
So that's what happens is that engenders that, and now that center that built is employing people.
All right.
And so it becomes that growth model where it kind of helps, it becomes sustainable, right? There are cities that are sustainable. There's other cities where basically everybody has to drive in somewhere else to go to work.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we see a lot of that where if you live in Riverside County and you work in San Diego County, because it's a lot less expensive to live in the one county and then work in the other.
But it's shifting because back in the 1990s, almost everybody that lived in Riverside County was driving to LA, Orange, or San Diego County to go to work.
Very true.
Now there's a lot of people that are going to work in Southwest Riverside County, pretty close to where they live.
Very true. Very, very true. All right, so to recap, we've talked about what an accredited investor is and a non-accredited investor. We've also now touched on acquisition and entitlement. So I feel I've learned a lot. Hopefully the audience has learned a whole lot as well.
Good, because there's going to be a quiz.
Oh, there will be a quiz. So you guys
got
heard
the
it
syllabus,
right here.
right?
There will be a quiz. So hopefully you've been taking notes. I have a cheat sheet. I've got Steve right here, and it's an open book test for me. But that's fantastic. So we're going to go to a commercial in a few minutes here, and then we're going to come back and pick Steve's brains a little bit more, and we'll also give you a number to if you've got any more questions. So we're going to go to commercial, and we will be back very shortly.